one of his big phrases was ABC, always be closing. Stupidest, dumbest sales advice of all time. Instead, I believe it should be ABL.
Always be listening.
Always be listening.
Welcome to the number one episode of Michael E. Holden Podcast Show. I'm super excited to be here with you today and introduce you to not only a colleague, but a mentor and a close friend. It's such a cool experience to have someone that I've looked up to for so many years staying at the house. We just did a book launch yesterday in Wilmette, Illinois. And Bob Finder, here we go. What a cool experience this is. Honestly, Bob, you have been my colleague and my mentor since 2010. And this journey of writing books with each other and going and giving presentations together, it's been a true privilege. And now having you here at my house, we just did a book launch yesterday in Wilmette, Illinois, which I'd love to hear your thoughts on. But it's such an honor to have you at the home with the family, playing with the dog, and working together. So thanks for joining, Bob.
Michael, it is my privilege and an honor. And, we've known each other, as you said, for almost 15 years as a colleague. But we've become very good friends. And good friends sometimes tell each other things they don't want to hear. And I think that's what makes our relationship special, because, a lot of people just don't want to hear certain things. And you know that I'm not one to let my feelings or thoughts go unsaid. And that's what I've really enjoyed the last year or two, watching you and sometimes having the opportunity to comment or assist in your book, The Authenticity Deficit. When you told me about the idea and the concept, I said, what the heck are you thinking, man? and sometimes I still think that way, because it's just very thought-provoking, and it's a very risky book too. Every book has a hero and the villain. And it's clear in your book who the hero is and who the villain is. And villain's got a lot of power. The hero, all the advisors that you throughout your career have cared so much about, their development, their progress, their potential. But they're up against sometimes a lot of challenges and obstacles and headwinds that, sometimes the villain puts in front of them. And you do a lot to help remind them that they can overcome that. Sometimes the villain is big bank, the firm. Always a villain? No. They do a lot of things that everyone needs. The platform, the resources, the systems, all the capabilities. But we've seen a progression of greater and greater and more control and compliance. And look, control and compliance is not bad in themselves until they begin to encroach upon the advisor in his or her or their team's authenticity, what you write about, the authenticity, the genuineness. And one of the areas that I've seen this happening is in personal communication. So I believe it's the one true differentiator in the industry. Because all firms, if they're worth their salt, have all the systems and platforms and all the capabilities that are needed. And there are minor degrees. One's a little bit better at this than the other, but pretty much it's the same. They're all buying the same funds or bonds or ETFs. So what's the difference? The difference is the impact, the relevancy, of the individual financial advisor. And not just to showcase or tout all the resources the firm has, but to develop that personal relationship, that trusting relationship with their clients. And how do you do that? Through communication, through human communication. The soft skills. They're soft skills. And so we push them aside because we want more of the technical, the hard skills. Give me all the advanced designations and this and that. And that's fine. Absolutely need that. But you also need the soft skills of listening. Does anyone listen anymore? And when you do speak in a clear and concise and compelling manner? And you help people deal with the feelings and the emotions that are swirling around them when it comes to money and finance and what to do and what's happening and all the stress and strain. That takes a financial advisor who will devote the time to understand the pain, what hurts, not minimize it, and then use the firm's capabilities to develop solutions and strategies to help people with their objectives and help ease the fear, the frustration, the emotions that often cause them to make poor financial decisions, and explain their advice in plain English, not with a lot of technical jargon. And then always make sure that advice is objective and unbiased and cost effective. And continually listen and check up on their clients, not just once or twice a year. But firms now are trying to say, here's the most efficient process. Here's the way to do things to be more timely. I'm not against efficiency, but when it cuts into an advisor's authenticity and those human skills, I think it marginalizes the relationship and makes advisors less and less and less relevant.
Bob, I loved your framework of Foodwaka when it comes to active listening. And the way you taught it to me, initially I felt like I needed to memorize it. And you said, no, just Foodwaka. Associate any feeling with each letter. Run me through Foodwaka.
Well, it's not my creation. It's something I learned or someone told me about from the Sandler sales system, and just pure basic sales techniques. But I think the concept is really brilliant and so applicable in the financial realm because it's this silly acronym that's really not an acronym because FUDWACA isn't a word, but the letters represent all sorts of feelings and emotions that often prevail when people are dealing with money. They're fearful, they're frustrated, they failed in the past, they're frightened, they're uncertain or upset, or there's some urgency that needs to be addressed. They're disappointed or distressed or disturbed or disrupted. They're worried or worn out or want something better. They're angry. They're anxious. They've been avoiding something. They're concerned or conflicted or confused or they're not sure if they're or who is in control. And the last A is any other feeling and emotion that people genuinely are dealing with. And that's why I think it's so important for advisors to be listening for more than just how much money do you have to invest? What do you think your risk tolerance is? You can get the data easily, but listen for someone's emotions, the pain, because what do people want? They want someone to help them reduce and mitigate and take that pain away. Pain is the catalyst for change. And Sandler was so right. And more so in our industry than I think almost any other. Advisors are thinking, what kind of client do I want? rich client, a client that likes my philosophy. No, you want a client who is in pain, because you and your firm may be able to help them take that pain away.
How do you coach or guide advisors to apply FundWalker? And at what point? Like, I'm a newer advisor. Am I walking into a client meeting and writing FundWalker? How does it work? How do I install this into my process as a practitioner?
Well, I'm showing my age, but there's a great sales movie, Glenn Ross. And remember what Alec Baldwin's one of his big phrases was? A, B, C. Always be closing. Stupidest, dumbest sales advice of all time, at least in my humble opinion. Who am I to say? Instead, I believe it should be ABL.
Always be listening.
Always be listening. Always be listening. And sometimes it doesn't have to be pain. It's the excitement. There can be good emotions too, but emotions, good or bad, can cause people to, who knows how they think, how they react under stress, under conditions, good or bad. They influence our decision making. And so we have to constantly, as advisors, be receptive to what those inputs are. And they're always changing. And I think an advisor's job is to help clients balance the emotions and feelings with logic and reason, not to make perfect decisions all the time, but to improve over time the decision-making process and make more good decisions and fewer bad decisions. Because we're going to. No one bats 1,000. But we can improve that ratio by listening. Then we can get to, I think, an advisor's favorite art, and that's speaking. But be clear, concise, compelling, and don't dumb your message down. I hate it when someone says, well, let me explain this to you, Michael, so you can understand. Really? I just insulted you so you can understand. Or let me make this simple, because you can't understand anything that isn't simple. Instead of this preface that doesn't do the advisor any good, just make it clear and concise and support it and make it compelling. Just do it. Don't say you're going to do it. Just do that. And then again, what you're doing is helping people think critically. So it's about critical listening, critical speaking, critical thinking. Automation, AI, all that technology, it's wonderful. It helps. But don't let it take the place of the human element, because that is the cornerstone of every successful relationship. Although, as you know, as you write in your book, big banks are wondering, really? Maybe we can make this process more automated, more technologically driven, less humanly driven. And what's that do? Well, our margins go up. We have better control over the whole situation. We don't have financial advisors going off the rails. It's easier. And maybe we just indoctrinate clients to feel that's the right way to deal with their money. It's put this information in an algorithm. You get an allocation. It picks the managers for you. What do you need the advisor for? And maybe some people that works. I think there are a lot of people out there that want that human connection. And it's important. And the human connection can give people the time to think. Does the machine give time to think? No. Here, instantly, here's what you should do. Really? It's that simple? Maybe it is. I think there's always a need for that human element. And no machine can replace that. At least I hope not.
I think you're absolutely right. I'm reflecting on a trip to Israel a couple of years ago where I met very senior members of, we'll say, other country bank. And in speaking to them, this is back in 2018, 2019, they said it was a strategic priority to eliminate branches and to eliminate bankers and assistant branch managers and branch managers. And the only two people that they intended to keep, and the words were, for now, were bankers and financial advisors. And I said, well, why? They said, well, for now, we can automate all the other ones. We'd look to make AI support them, but eventually we don't really need them either. And that was eye-opening to hear from such a senior member in another country, because I think the same conversation's being had here.
We've talked about that right here in this country. You know the firm very well. An article that I saw interviewing a chief marketing officer of big bank, big firm, talking about their approach to clients. And they said, clients, they're like humans. I mean, that was
I read that.
They're like, they're like human sort of people. Or it's like, and then talking about our approaches is for mass personalization. And I'm like, what an oxymoron. How do you do mass personalization? But this is a formidable.
She also said, we raise our hands and speak with authenticity when it makes sense for us.
Yeah, and when it makes sense for us.
It was a horrific
when it makes
announcement
for the firm. And it's like, my goodness.
But that in itself, I think the general public as well, I've been reading all these Wall Street Journal articles of, can you believe that this is actually the business? And demanding more and more mistrust from the clients to look at reps with a scrutinizing eye. But that chief marketing officer, I think they're telling it to you right in front of your face. She continues to say, it's not about just the data that we get from these people. But then in the next sentence says, well, in the data, we can use this. It was a horrific message. So, Bob, we spoke about the framework of listening. I love talking too just about the framework in our advice. Give me some comments you've taken me through in my life in the 5 of number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 of safe harbors. Tell us what a safe harbor is and walk me through this. I know it, but I found it life-changing for me.
Well, the concept of a safe harbor is we have a very good idea about the type of technical concepts that we're going to engage clients in. Talking about asset allocation and risk and non-portfolio risk management and an investment outlook or a market outlook. We know certain topics are part and parcel of our daily activity. But so often, advisors have the tendency to wing it, to just speak off the cuff, and that's okay. They get by with that. But is it about getting by with it, or is it about thinking about a structure that makes sense and that's there in their pocket, in their repertoire, that they can draw upon anytime the subject comes up. And so they're not going off in tangents or going overboard in minutia or going to 30,000-foot level, but they can respond in a very impactful manner. I'll give you an example. An investment outlook. Clients are all, what's going on in the markets? And a lot of times advisors and big banks, well, just put them in touch with or show them a video or have them on a conference call with the back of the house, our investment group. The investment group will tell them what they should be thinking or what we think. No, I want to know what my advisor thinks. And that's where I think the advisor should be prepared to give a succinct overview of what's going on. Now, problem is, succinct overview of a very macro topic is hard to get your arms around. So I suggest to some of my clients, think of four letters, excuse me, I, E, G, and R, and what they may stand for when it comes to the market and economy, investment outlook. I can stand for interest rates, inflation, immigration, imports. Is there something to talk about there? Sure, there always is. So a brief snippet or two, okay, I can bring that up. The E can stand for equities, the economy, earnings, employment, energy, the consequences of our elections and all the policies that come from that. G stands for global issues, and it can be a myriad now, tariffs or China or trade and wars in Ukraine, the Middle East. There's never a shortage. Doesn't mean you have to cover everything, but let the client know you're monitoring what's going on in the world. It's always changing, but you have an idea.
Now I'm hearing a drum roll because I can't wait to hear about the R.
But you can't control I, E, or G. You can't control where interest rates are going or inflation or what earnings are going to do with the stock market or whether there'll be trade agreements or not. You can't control that. But what advisors have a chance of controlling or influencing is the amount of risk, the R, that clients are exposed to. And they can help control risks that are portfolio oriented. They can help them control non-portfolio risk, personal risk, longevity, long-term care, disability, property and casualty, business succession, all sorts of non-portfolio risk, and behavioral risk that we talked about. And so let people know, clients know you know what's going on. You don't have to have someone else tell you what's going on, but then focus in on what do we need to do to help you feel better about the portfolio, non-portfolio, and behavioral risk that you're dealing with. And that little safe harbor is something it's a repeatable framework. And advisors, I think they're pretty darn capable of filling in that framework if they just remember it instead of just going off on a tangent like I'm doing.
No, this is really powerful. Okay, you think of, I'm seeing a T chart in my mind right now. And we've covered listening and we said Foodwaka. Foodwaka can enable an advisor to be relevant versus canned listening. And then now we're talking about our advice and we're saying IEGR versus here at Evil Bank or here at Big Empire, this is our market overview. And I do want that takes us to messaging, where you have your own messaging versus canned messaging. This T chart directly is why this book was written, because it's canned versus customized. It's I'm told to say this versus I've done my work and this is what I'm saying. One establishes your credibility and it makes your relationship with trust. The other, you're just a number. That's a problem. Now, I want to talk about, so that takes us directly to messaging in a brilliant way, I think. Tell me, in your experience, the good messaging you've seen, where, on what platforms, and the bad.
What about the personal messaging of the advisor? We've talked about this too. There are firms out there, and you look up an advisor, and you get, a canned paragraph or two. And then maybe you look up another advisor in that same branch or market, and it's the same paragraph or two. And you look up another and another and another, and I've seen where there'd be 25, sometimes 50 advisors in a location, and they all have the same one paragraph description. Now, maybe they have another website, maybe they have a team website, but it doesn't send them to that team website. And maybe that team website has more customized information, but a lot of times, it. Maybe the public doesn't realize it, but it's boilerplate. It's generic boilerplate. And I'm not saying that having a great website is the end all, but I think there's merit, there's value in letting clients know, hey, who are you? What what's your real background? I have a passion for investment, man. You have a passion for investment. What does that mean? What's your background? Your life experiences, your 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 philosophy, not what someone just gives you to say, but what's your own. I find advisors have fascinating stories and backgrounds, and not that like everyone is perfect for every client, but tell your story. Don't have someone else tell it for you in such a generic way that I couldn't tell one advisor from another. And that's just in the website. Now, when you're one-on-one with the client, what do you say about yourself? What's your value proposition? What's your mission statement? I don't care what you call it. You got to be able to deliver in that clear, concise, compelling manner. What do you do? Why do you do it? How do you do it? Why does it matter? And instead, you get this generic gibber jabberish, and it's like, oh, everyone's the same. And I think so much of the public, yeah, all advisors are about the same. But the ones that spend time and say, no, I'm going to play within the rules, of course, and the guidelines and compliance and not say anything wrong. But golly, I'm going to say what's inside of me and what I want people to know. That's authenticity.
Yeah.
And that's what I know we're both driving at and trying to promote, not this automaton approach that everyone's the same.
Let's ask the $1 million question. If you look through the perspective of Evil Bank, do you think they'd prefer having 25 advisors with the same canned message? Do you think it's a strategic objective to keep consistently canning listening, advice, and messaging?
I think some institutions don't know better and find it just left. Well, they like the control and the device is just getting tighter and tighter. What's fun? I'll give you an example. So hundreds of examples. You'll see a website, you'll read it, and it's supposed to be a group's personal website, and it sounds like that. And then you'll see, and please be sure to call your financial advisor. Why in this third person call your financial advisor? It's the financial advisor's website, and they almost talk as if
it's a third person. I think I'd be excited to see them actually say financial advisor. I'm hearing terms like relationship manager.
Yeah. It's just that's. And not every bank and not every advisor goes through that. But the ones that work with firms that are reasonable and let advisors be who they are, again, within the guide rails, absolutely. Now you give people a choice, just this commoditized generic version, or here, this is someone with this background and these this approach and these special skills and that, and someone else, and then you can decide and make it a truly informed decision on who would be that best fit with you, as opposed to they all seem the same. They all seem the same.
This is a great transition for the 4 types of advisors, because why are advisors not seeing this or relentlessly pursuing to be uncanned? Well, we've talked about it at length. What are the 4 mindsets of advisors today?
Well, I think there's a group that you might call complacent, or the status quo advisor. And there are a lot of them because they're doing well. They've got a good practice. They're got a system in place. Sure, they say, that they can always be better, but don't rock the boat. Got things good. And I think big bank likes them because if they're complacent, they stay, and there's more continuity, and they like that.
They're under the radar. They
Yeah,
come in to sit close the door.
Not a lot of problem. Status quo. Good. Then there's a group of advisors we'd call realists, and they know they do a lot of good things very well. And they also know there's some weaknesses. There are areas in their practice that they could be a lot better at. And they work to strengthen the areas they're good at, keep getting better, and they address those weaknesses to minimize them, reduce them, eliminate them. But there's also two versions of realists: the ones that just say that, and the ones that say and do something about it. Then there's a third group, you might call them the ones on autopilot. They're similar to complacent. They've got a good system. It's running well. It's a well-oiled machine. They utilize technology and efficiencies, and it's running pretty good. But sometimes they take the eye off the autopilot, and autopilots don't always work. And then kaboom. Then there's the consummate profession. And those are the advisors that just work at that high level, the high standards. They continue to strengthen their practice. They eliminate the best of their ability, the weaknesses. But you know what? They don't always win. And when they don't win, or they lose a relationship, or they're not growing the right way, it upsets them. And darn it, they really take a close, deep look, and they don't like that, and they want to get back on that playing field at the highest level of performance. So the two are similar in ways. You got complacent and autopilot, and you have the realists and the consummate pros.
Sure.
But you know what? If the realist and the consummate pro don't watch it and don't stay focused on continuing to improve their skills and practice and rehearse and prepare, it's pretty easy to flip and go to autopilot and complacent. We've talked about this as managers and firms. Guys, sometimes we spend so much time trying to get all those advisors in that complacency bucket to change their ways. And I think, you know what? It's a lot more productive to focus on the realist and the consummate professional who's not going to just sit there and, let me think about it, but actually do something about it and invest the time, the resources, the energy in their practice, both technical skill and the soft skills. And now you've got advisors that can truly separate and distance themselves from the great masses of content or complacent advisors out there.
Now, Bob, you've been doing this for decades of
watch it,
watch it. Inspiring and helping advisors earn their relevance. And I have it in my head, this grid. We have quadrants 1, 2, 3, and 4, and the consummate pro and the realist, but the realist that actually does something. These are our ideal clients. And would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Now, so we've gone through several things that I think are absolutely so valuable. The messaging and the listening and being canned versus not canned. And now let's talk about Fin-Comm, which, by the way, I love that name. I don't know. You pulled it off. I'm so glad you got that. Fin-Comm, financial communications. Tell us about this company.
Well, it's just a small consulting practice, and it's dedicated to helping a select group of financial advisors just be better versions of themselves. I know that they're already good, but by working on those personal communication skills, by hearing what they need to hear, not always what they want to hear, and by putting in the continual time and effort and work, just like a pro athlete or a musician or any artist just continues to work on their craft, they can end up being even better versions of themselves. So it's just about, it's the refinement, the polish, and just refocusing on these basic basic skills that apply in finance and in other fields, but are under attack. They're being minimized, and they're not always that easy. It's not easy to be videotaped and then to be critiqued.
No, it's not.
And to hear that. But then the feeling you had last night after you spoke at your book launch, and you put in all this time and effort and preparation and practice and rehearsal. It's like, do I really need that? Or do I just go in there and wing it? And you don't wing it, and you go there, and then people come up to you and tell you how they appreciate it. And you know what? It makes you feel better, and you got your message across. Well, that's what advisors can do by working on themselves, and not just going to some lecture or some rewards trip and having someone come in and say, "Oh, you should do this." And, yeah. And then never doing anything about it. Another Sandler book. It's just an unbelievable title. So on point. You can't teach a kid to ride a bike at a seminar. You can't teach someone communication skills by reading a book. Book can get you interested. Now you got to get to doing it, and doing it with someone who's not going to tell you. And this is what I think maybe my biggest concern of big bank is. They're not going to tell an advisor, that presentation you gave wasn't up to your standards. That you were unclear in that area. I mean, they're not going to say that, because it's like, well, really, you didn't like that? I'm going to take an offer someplace else. They're always, oh, that was great. You were great. It was wonderful. Because I want to keep you in the seat, instead of saying, you're a great advisor. You should be better than that. And here are those resources, not just more technology. Here are those resources to elevate your game and elevate the team around you, from your client associate, junior partner to senior partner. Let's elevate that. And because we know that you're better than that, and our clients deserve better than that. Oh, you're going to hurt my feelings. Yeah, that's what they're afraid of. But to the right advisors, those realists and the consummate pros, they're going to say, thank you, because I don't want to slack off, and I don't want my skills and my capabilities to atrophy. I want to be continually giving my clients the best. And so that's being authentic, as opposed to, oh, no, that was great. That was great.
Fantastic.
That was great. Yeah, fantastic.
What I love, I'm thinking about last night, and we had some of the top advisors in the state, if not the country. And you and an advisor came to me and said, I'd love for you and Bob to come and do seminars for our clients. So I loved this presentation. And you made this comment. Actually, I made the comment and you smiled. And I said, well, the goal would be to get him to go do seminars for his clients. And to your point of everything you just said, the from the heart intention is to enable the advisors to represent themselves.
Yeah.
That's where the custom kills the canned. And I think that's the mission, is to kill the canned. And what do you think's going to happen? What do you think their book's going to do if their messaging and their advice and the way they listen is customized?
Well, it's going to be a lot different than if it's all outsourced or just turned over to, our other people are going to come and speak to you, or our folks are going to tell you what our investment outlook is, and all this is coming from the house. But wait a second. The relationship is that advisor. And so what we do is we help prepare them using the firm's materials and all the resources. Yeah, but the firm provides that. But sometimes, maybe in defense of the firm, the advisors are looking for the easy route. They don't want to make that effort to absorb and assimilate that material and put it together and make it personal and unique. So it's a lot easier. Well, we've invited in our specialist in this or that area, and they're going to speak to you. That's the easy, easy way out. The harder way is, no, you're going to get up there and you're going to put on that performance. Look, clients want performance, but they also deserve a performance.
Yes.
And that means bringing your best and thinking about what are you going to say? What's your script? What are the points? You don't want to go off on tangents. How is this going to be produced, directed, choreographed? It is like a Broadway play or a movie. Got to think of all these parts. But when you do and you deliver that performance, you don't want clients are going to give you that standing ovation. Not so much when, well, we have a guest speaker and the guest speaker is going to come in and maybe pay for dinner or whatever. That's so old fashioned and I think, inauthentic.
You're saying it, but I want you to reiterate it. Fin-Comm is so far beyond just public speaking. So far beyond that. I'd like you to expand on that. It's not about just public speaking. In my heart, it's about not being canned, but tell me more.
Well, it's speaking is a part, listening, critical thinking. So we listen, we speak, we think. Soft skills, maybe, but they're very hard and they're very essential. And I ask people all the time, have you ever taken a class in listening? Yeah, maybe you took a speech class in college and that was really good, great, whatever. And critical thinking, behavioral finance now, so critical. I mean, I don't think we're as much financial advisors as also financial therapists. And there are designations now, recognized designations in financial therapy. Highly recommend that. And so Fin-Comm is it's financial communication in the personal style.
Let's be honest, how much does this then translate to our personal life? And I'll give you an example. You worked with my wife. She unfortunately lost her mother in May of last year. To cancer, and it was a nasty bout. It's a nasty experience, and my wife has zero public speaking experience. And not only was she challenged to deal with losing her mother tragically, but she also had to go and represent her mother's honor publicly. And Bob, with so much care and skill and caution, you really changed my wife's life. And you changed her life by way of this arguably is one of the most substantial life changes in her life. And I was in the church and I'm watching people's faces, but I was watching her father. And her father almost couldn't believe now his little girl standing in front of the church, who's a brilliant mother and a wife and a woman, representing her mother's honor so eloquently. So as much as this whole conversation was about financial advisors and being uncanned and what they need to do to be relevant, well, we should talk about, well, if you do the hard work and you do go through this, what outcomes will you achieve personally by doing this work?
It does apply in your personal life too, because just as you want to listen to a client, you want to listen to your spouse, your children, friends, families, with this concept of genuine and sincere interest. And so it reminds us to not be so self-absorbed about how we feel or what's important to us, but to lend your ear to how other people are feeling, and to speak with them with respect, with candor, with kindness as a situation dictates, and to also remember that they have their unique feelings and emotions, and don't just impose our own, well, this is how you should feel, or you shouldn't feel that way. No, to recognize other people have those feelings, and it just you become more relevant to them because you show that you care. And I think communication, caring is so intertwined. So yeah, it's not to make people better, and that's in your book. It's not just to be a more authentic, more relevant financial professional, but to just be a more authentic and sincere and relevant individual. And boy, in our world today, we could use a lot more of that.
Let's call it what it is. You put in the hard work and you achieve these things. And what do you think happens to your fulfillment?
Yeah.
Right? So, ladies and gentlemen, The Financial Professional's Guide to Communication. This is an awesome, awesome book written by Bob. It's a true honor to sit here. We're both authors, we're both friends, and now we're both consultants. And man, it's just an honor. I can't thank you enough. I love you, and I think we're good.
I think so too, Michael. Thank you.
Hey, this is great. This is great.